Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Calendar in stainless steel. You can see and you can purchase this automatic winding complete calendar moon phase with power reserve on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch, with additional accessories included in the sale, high-resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Calendar. The model that you see here was produced from 2005 to 2012, and it represents one of the most comprehensive fusions of JLC engineering and style traditions that I can recall from any era. Now, since the late 1940s, JLC has continuously built a power reserve automatic after the first caliber 481 Powermatic model, and since at least the 1930s, the company has offered a calendar wristwatch, often with a moon phase. This watch combines both of those threads of JLC history into a single 40mm case. Now, the model straddles that space between a sports watch and a dress watch, since it features elements of both, with the moon phase and the silver dial treatment suggesting perhaps a more dress-oriented watch, and the strong geometries of the case with the rare full bracelet suggesting perhaps a more sporting demeanor and purpose. This watch really does achieve both. So on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see the 40mm case is a shape that will be familiar to JLC customers from the 2000s. It's a little bit heavier and hardier than a typical dress watch, so it has that sporting profile, and the same shape was shared with the Master compressors during this period. It's not terribly thick at 13.2 with a generously sloped bezel. It will slide underneath a dress sleeve, not just a sport jacket cuff, but the sleeve beneath. And from lug to lug, it's fairly compact at 48mm across the wrist if you were to throw it on a strap, and it looks great on a strap. But with this bracelet, which incorporates solid end links, you do have a slightly broader flare across the wrist. The horizontal measurement side to side is 53.2mm. Once again, swapping to a strap both looks good and feels good. I always say buy on a bracelet for value. Keep the bracelet even if you don't wear it, because it will always cost more to purchase as an accessory, and it's a great inclusion to have if you ever decide to resell a watch. Now, the bracelet is a very substantial piece. Before I proceed any further, let me say that I believe you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 14.5 centimeters circumference with no issues regarding fit or appearance. The bracelet is very substantial and handsome. Now, this bracelet first debuted in 1998 with the Reverso Grand Sport series and quickly found its way into the remainder of the catalog. The individual links, you can see small intermediate links and larger flanking links, give it a silky feeling on the wrist. I would say in terms of comfort, it's much like a Rolex Jubilee. In terms of heft, it's like a 3-link Rolex Oyster. You'll note that spring bars, they look like pins and sleeves. They are spring bars, are used for sizing the bracelet. There's a tremendous amount of handsome finish. You'll note the beveled edges, not just of the flanking links, but of the intermediates. They're beveled edges being high polished in between the satin finished tops, beautifully rounded on the top. You can see that the intermediate links have a loft to them that matches the curvature of the outer links. On the underside, plenty of gaps to aerate the wrist on a hot day, and you'll note a radiused edge, a dramatically radiused edge. This is not your standard bracelet bottom profiling, and that gap created by the two rounded flanks ensures that this watch will not pinch skin or pull hair. Very comfortable on the wrist. The clasp system is ingenious. First, it's very secure. When closed, 4 triggers and 2 deployants mean that you must positively disengage all 4 of them to completely open the clasp. The clasp body is curved, and you'll note seamless to trace the arc of the underside of the wrist with comfort. Each individual side of the clasp features a small easy link-like micro adjustment. You could see the hollow of the micro adjustment. You can take out either side. Both sides have the same mechanism, and they effectively act as flanking links. So half link on each side, take them both out. It's the equivalent of adding 1 full-sizable link, take 1 out. It's the equivalent of a half link adjustment. Put them both in. It's the equivalent of removing 1 full adjustable link. Again, very comfortable. The aesthetic, highly integrated, nicely made. This is Jaeger-LeCoultre at its best. The case is simple. Like I said, this was a case profile that was used for everything from dive watches to minute repeaters to tourbillon to watches like this that sort of straddle that line between sports watch and complicated dress watch. The sheer flanks and the heavy lugs give it the burly look of a sports watch, but the gentle beveled transition from the flank to the top of the lug, as well as the tapered composition of the lugs when viewed from overhead. They are quite elegant from this angle, give it a little bit of a softer dress watch aesthetic. The bezel is fairly heavy and broad, but not excessively so. The dial has a lot of strength to it. It might have overpowered in a darker color, so the choice of a silver sunburst is an excellent one. The timepiece features many complications. As you can see, there is a small seconds with a coaxial moon phase with a double crescent display, apertures for the day and the month, a power reserve scale tracing 43 hours of power reserve at 12 o'clock. There is a radial date indicator with a gorgeous red crescent. You'll also notice plots of lume at the four corners with small slivers of lume on the gorgeous blackened alpha style hands at center. Alpha is also used for small seconds in the power reserve. I happen to prefer that shape over Dauphine because to me they're a little bit more dynamic with the pinch and then the swell of their pointed spear-like profile. They're more elegant and not quite as heavy and cumbersome as Dauphine. All of the indices are diamond polished, faceted, and hand applied, and you can see there's a slight recess for the power reserve scale. The dial is nicely detailed right down to the stepped taper of the windows for the individual day and the month. The taper ensures a more gradual transition from the plane of the dial down to the date disc. Otherwise, the dial is lightly reactive due to its sunburst grain. It does shimmer and shine in direct light. It glows in the soft, warm light of my light box. Turning the watch over, you can see the crown is polished and simple. Pusher adjusters are used on the flanks to adjust the calendar indications. However, when you pull the crown, you do activate the hacking seconds function of the caliber 924, so you can stop the seconds while the moon phase can trace spans as long as approximately 2 3/4 years between adjustments. You can also set the watch to the second, the juxtapositions of the two time scales being rather clever of Jaeger-LeCoultre, putting the seconds on top of the moon phase, the smallest and the largest spans of time that the watch can measure. Now you'll note that the caliber 924 is principally machine finished, but thoughtfully so. A lot of money was spent to make this caliber look good and run well. It features Jaeger-LeCoultre's 1000 hours control, which is a test of fully cased up chronometry. The complete watch tested for precision, for power reserve, for winding efficiency, for resistances including water resistance, so that being far more stringent, conducted over 1000 hours or several weeks versus the 16 days of the COSC test. Now you saw the hacking seconds function, so it has stop seconds. What you might not be able to see is that it uses a full 22 karat gold winding mass in an era when many brands were already making the transition to 21 karat, 18 karat, or even a heavy base metal like tungsten. So not much expense spared from a functional standpoint. It's also a unidirectional winder, the caliber 924 is. Unidirectional winding with ceramic rotor bearings at center for higher efficiency, both ceramics and unidirectional winding contributing to that efficiency. You can see an open barrel profile is used to help make the movement thinner, and you'll note that it is a modular complication, the adjusters for the calendar being on a higher plane than the crown, so thinning out the movement for the sake of a compact case was important. Circular Côte de Genève beautifully blazoned on the winding mass as well as across the bridges. All of the screws are true heat blued screws. They are kiln fired and oxidized to achieve the blueness, not chemically dyed. The watch has a 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate, or 4 Hz, and you'll note the balance is free sprung for shock resistance, as well as the superior ability of a free-sprung balance to be precisely regulated and then hold that regulation in the face of bumps and disruptions on the wrist. The hairspring is laser welded at the stud and the collet to further reinforce the watch against bump, vibration, or concussion-induced timing deviation. A handsome watch made from 2005 to 2011. It's an awful lot of complication for the money, and it's worth noting that available on the rare bracelet, the watch has an entirely different aesthetic and value proposition than if purchased on the strap. See and decide for yourself on our website.